RW down here in the Mountain Storm Workshop. I'm working on a custom reservoir that's been spec'd out by the customer, so I have to build it to the specifications, but there's certain things that hold true for any time you're trying to fuse up acrylic in a perfect manner. You want it, you're making a box, you want it to be perfectly square, you want everything to fuse up with no gaps. Well, one thing you really can't cheat on is sandpaper. You can't get the thing sanded using old worn out sandpaper. You can't sand it by hand, just fold up a piece of sandpaper and rub it. And you definitely can't use a machine. You'll never ever get a square, flat, perfect edge running on a machine. It's too aggressive. What happens is when you're trying to sand, first of all, you're probably going to end up changing dimension end to end. One side's going to sand more than the other because whichever side is being presented to the paper's moving this way, is going to want to dig in more and lift up more. So even if you're trying to push down more over here, it's going to try and sand more over here. Also, you're not going to be able to control, even if you had a fence, you're not going to be able to control the edge and keep it perpendicular the way you really need to. So the way I usually start off, okay, is I start off with some fairly coarse paper stuck down on a perfectly flat surface. I literally lay my part on there. Right off the saw, you've got a reasonably perpendicular edge. And what I do is I grab the piece with both hands as low as possible till my fingers are almost dragging on the paper. I move it back and forth a couple times, and I flip it around, and I move it back and forth a couple times, and I do that until I've gotten rid of my cut marks from the table saw. That's all I'm trying to do, just get the major cut marks off using some relatively coarse paper. Then I go over here to my table saw, and I have something that allows me to get a perfectly perpendicular edge. All I got to do is stick down paper on this perfectly flat cast iron platen and slide my piece against my fence. And the beauty of this is as you start to build up some plastic powder on the paper, you can just unlock your fence and relock it, and unlock your fence and relock it, unlock your fence and relock it, and go on until you're at the end of your paper strip. And you can take it off, you can blow it off with your compressed air or vacuum it off, whatever you want to do. And you can start over with your next piece. And what you're assured at this point, if you follow that same idea of flipping it around, is that you're going to get a perfectly perpendicular edge. So what I do is I push my piece as low as possible. I'm pushing back and forth with my two hands. I've got one hand mirroring the other, just like that. I'm applying a little bit of downforce on each corner. I try to keep it exactly even. I'm applying some force into the fence to make sure that I'm not rocking, right? And I'm flipping my piece. So I'll go a couple swipes, and I'll flip my piece, and I'll go a couple swipes, and I'll flip my piece. And I'm pushing as low as possible to keep it from rocking, just like it would on a power sander. You don't want it to be rocking and burning off one edge more than the other. You're trying to keep everything square. So it's very tedious, very time consuming. I'm not going to bother showing it to you. I have done that in the past with other videos, but I wanted to explain the premise and the theory behind it. So that's the end of this video, guys. Just explaining how to get a perpendicular, perfectly flat, perfectly smooth edge so that when you fuse it up with acrylic solvent, everything goes together perfectly. Alright guys, we'll come back and I'll show you a few more tips and tricks in the next video.